Chuck, welcome. I'm happy to have you. Happy that you drove up, took the time out of your day to do this. I'm super excited for this, episode with you, just to speak to you again. We did one like 3 years ago. Obviously, my podcast, when I started, I stopped it. But yeah, super grateful for you to, again, take the time out of your day to come up here, do this. I was looking forward to I was like, finally, a good sit down that I could have with you to just, quote unquote, pick your brain and just have a good conversation together, which we didn't really get so much in the past. No. So, when I really thought of it, it was always like, training, and pretty much that was the topic, the highlighted topic of our conversation. So, I'm happy that you're here. 32 now.
32, just turned 32 this past Saturday.
Yeah, how was that?
Well, everything hurts. And sometimes for no reason. Like, I'll just wake up and something else hurts, and I'm like, oh, I have a huge appreciation now for anybody that's still a professional athlete after the age of 30. Because, like, you and I both know, as athletes, we're way more in tune with our bodies. We notice every little thing compared to the average person. And so you really notice a difference once you hit over 30 compared to when you were like 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Wow. Really? So like, I just have a huge appreciation for anybody that's still, rocking pro status in any sport at 33 and up. It's crazy.
You actually feel the difference ever since?
I do. Like I just don't recover as fast. That's the one thing I noticed. Like, I haven't really lost a lot of strength, maybe just a bit, but it's really like the recovery time.
Really?
Like, if I don't sleep a minimum of 7.5 hours, 7 hours, like minimum, I'm useless. I used to be able to like go out at night, party,
on,
sleep 5-6 hours, train 10 clients in a day, and still hit the weights hard. And I'd be fresh as day the next workout, Not
anymore.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Not so much anymore.
Wanted to say thank you for having me, by the way. This is a gift for you. It's got a little bit of sentimental value.
You want to give it right now?
I want to give it right now. So
really?
This gift has a little bit of sentimental value. It was actually one of the first pieces of gym equipment that I ever bought myself. And you introduced it to me the first time we worked out together at the gym, and it changed my life forever. I use it every day till this day on all my workouts. So that's for you.
Jeez, my heart's beating so fast. I'm like, what is it? So for people just listening and not actually watching the video, so Chuck arrived here, like you just heard, with a gift. It's in a gray bag, so I'm just going to open it up. That's very nice.
I got him a goldfish.
There you go. We're going to name it. We're going to come up with a name together.
Pedro.
Oh, wow. Wow, bro, these changed the game.
They're the best.
These changed the game.
I make every single one of my clients buy one. They're the best.
The best.
Yeah. Now they have the extreme, not even the pro version. These are like the extreme.
Wow.
They're also twice the price from when we used to buy them, by the way.
Inflation.
Dude, I couldn't believe it.
Okay,
worth it.
Oh my God, thanks a lot.
They're the best.
Thanks so much. Wow, I did not know it was going to be this, but now that I see it, I'm like, this was like...
Rings a bell? Remember when you lent me yours?
It was everything.
Yeah.
It was everything. These are a game changer for the people just watching. It's I'm going to put it up on the screen too. It's pretty much like wrist straps.
Yeah.
But these are like a game changer. They have like a leather kind of, what would you call this? Patch.
Well, instead of having like a really long wrist wrap that you have to like coil around the bar like 3-4 times, that's not even sticky or adhesive at all. These, it's like about a 3-inch tongue, and it's as grippy as like a wide receiver's glove. And you just like boop once, and it just locks in whatever weight you're holding for you, and it's like the equivalent of having like 2 sets of hands. That's like the difference.
And not losing your grip either.
It's insane. I use it for every workout.
Oh my God.
Ever since you introduced me to these, like, I've never gone to work out without using them.
So good. So comfortable too.
Yeah.
Versus the
way better than leather wrist wraps or straps or whatever else exists.
Yeah.
Like, I've tried everything.
Me too.
Even sponges. Like, I put a sponge. Like,
really?
that was old school. Like, I used to just
God.
like, or weightlifting gloves. Forget it.
You're not walking around with those.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Dude, my pleasure. God. My pleasure. Thanks for having me. So, when you sent me your address, your new address, because
Yes.
you used to live like around Mirabel, right?
Yes. Obviously, I don't want to say the city of here. Just
No. But when you sent me your new address and I stuck it in my maps, I literally had to zoom in to see where you live.
Yes.
So I prepared a little list for you. 6 signs to know if you are a recluse.
Which is?
A recluse?
Yes.
Somebody who likes to be alone, away from
Secluded.
everybody. Yeah. Basically a huge loner. So 6 signs to know if you're a recluse.
Well, look, I do. Girlfriend too is with me. You know,
Of
I'm
course.
not. I'm not completely alone. So
No, but given where we are, 1, you live in a place most English people can't even pronounce. 2, it requires half a tank of gas for any of your friends to come see you. 3, your backyard looks like it belongs in the Triassic period.
in the
Triassic period.
which is what?
I think that's even before Jurassic.
Yeah, because it's that. We'll say it's not.
It's like the most tropical, dense forest you could imagine.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. 4, you have a homemade sauna and cold plunge bath directly on your property.
Which we're gonna do after.
We're gonna use it.
Oh,
let me
yes.
tell you.
Yes.
5, if you shoot a gun, no one will hear it. And 6, you hate any and all forms of modern civilization.
Pretty
6
damn
signs.
accurate. Pretty damn accurate. Except for, which would be surprising for most people,
Yeah.
is the gunshot. Because of the vast amount of like land and minimal amount of people stuck to one another, when someone actually shoots a gun, there's a huge echo. Same thing with animal sounds. Like sometimes if I wake up in the morning or late at night and we go to the cold plunge or something, we hear the wolves. So that you would think they're so close, but the pack is probably like
You
a
got
bit
like
further.
wolves and coyotes out
Oh,
here?
bro. Wolves, coyotes, fox, deer, black bear, moose, lynx.
Another reason to own a gun. All of them out here.
But yeah, pretty
No more needing to buy your meat. Just go shoot it.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah, surprising that would be the only pretty much inaccurate one out of the 6. I love how you came prepared with those.
It was a beautiful drive up here, though. Let me tell you, it was.
Yeah,
It was.
especially like 30 minutes away. Like when you turned, I think it was right, like in that mini village there, where
About 30 minutes out from where you are.
from where yeah
Yes.
27 there or something.
Yeah.
From that point on, maybe 2 minutes after that, after you pass that small little street
Extremely
village,
scenic.
very,
Yeah,
very,
it's
and like
beautiful.
especially when it was like, you know, right smack in the middle of autumn, fall.
Yeah.
The colors and oh my god, like so nice.
You know, I've been living. I was just telling. We were just talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
I've been living now downtown for like 8 years, and I grew up my whole life in the West Island, like a 30-minute drive from downtown, and now I'm starting to feel the itch to like just have some land, have a house with a backyard, like some peace and quiet. Like I'm starting to feel the itch to go back to that lifestyle, because like just the nonstop noise, construction. It's like I'm over it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's crazy because a lot of people come to realization of those things, and more and more people tend to kind of, you know, get into that.
As I get older, I think.
As they get older, I think certain things change, or I don't know, whatever it may be. But for me and my girlfriend, like it's been a game changer,
Dude,
like huge game changer. Just like it's so the smallest things too. Like for example, just like when you go to bed at night, the lights outside when it's nighttime. Here I can't even see my car.
Dude,
It's
the amount of
pitch
light
black.
pollution I have, because like my condo, great, it's nice. It's a corner unit facing the entire skyline of Montreal on the 11th floor. But the lights that just emit from all the buildings, if I don't close all the blinds throughout my entire apartment, there's like, it even just comes through the under the
Creeping.
door, the light from like, it's, I always find when I go up north or when I sleep in my buddy's cabin that he's got, chalet, I sleep like a rock. I wake up feeling so refreshed. I don't know what it is. Even if I sleep the same amount of hours, like I usually I can't sleep past like 8 a.m. ever. I just wake up feeling super recharged and rejuvenated. It's crazy. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's that. I don't know.
Yeah, probably a mixture of a lot of things. Because before we were speaking about distractions too. Just the distractions and not necessarily you'll focus on, but just having those outside things that are like, you know,
if I moved up here for like 3 months, I would get like 3 years worth of work done. It's, I swear to God.
Well, when you have a lot of work, just text me.
I'll move into the sauna.
Yeah, there you go.
Just don't turn it on. I'll just move into the sauna. Bring a little tote bag with me, and
you'll be good.
We'll get shit done.
Yeah.
There you go.
We met years and years ago.
Yeah.
For, you know, I'm going to be 30 next year, so 15 years or even more. I think when I first met you, you were 14, or I was seeing videos of you squatting that your dad showed me of you at 14 years old, barbell squatting.
Yes.
At, you know, his
facility.
Yes, facility.
It has to have at least been 15 years since I've met you. Yeah.
Bro, that's so crazy.
Yeah. It's like half my life. Yeah.
Exactly. It's exactly why I kind of took note of that. I was like, I gotta mention this.
Yeah.
Because first time absolutely flies.
Yeah.
And two, like, there's not a lot of people, and I'm just speaking for myself specifically, that I know of that's like not blood related to me, that I've actually known for like half my life.
And stayed in contact with. Yeah.
Which I find that very cool, very special. It's cool to have in a circle. And
it's hard to make new friends as you get an adult.
Yeah.
When you're working full time, you live with your girlfriend, and you got to make time to see your family. So I find it's not easy to make new friends as an adult.
Do you have a close circle?
I do. I have like my 3 closest friends. I don't think I'd even have time for more than that, to be honest. But as I get older, like, I find my circle gets tighter.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree with that. 100%. And you're very close with your family as well.
That helps. Yeah.
That's
I do have 2 siblings. We're all really close. I have cousins.
What's the difference in age?
Not much. My brother's just over 2 years younger than me. My sister's 5.5 years younger.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're all like relatively close in age. And actually, the older we get, I find the closer we get.
Yeah.
We have a deeper appreciation for our parents as well. You know, when you're younger, you're just like, and as I get older, But as I get older, actually, I appreciate and respect my parents even more, and I actually enjoy hanging out with them more, and I listen to their advice more, and I listen more, which is what I actually listen, which is what I wish I would have done many years ago.
Yes,
could have avoided a lot of growing pains, but that's part of life.
Absolutely, you learn a lot.
Yeah, of course.
So we're going to definitely speak about, you know, many different topics I wanted to, speak about with you. Yeah. One, I think it's a good segue to go into is training. The whole training, aspect, simply because that's where our paths crossed. And also, I know that you got introduced to the whole training scene at a very young age because of, I'm assuming, your dad was a very influential figure in your life in terms of training. Speak to me about that. How did that come about at such a young age? How did he or you, like, how did he introduce it to you? How did you get introduced to it? I want to know about that. I've never heard the story. It's so true. You got to kind of spill the beads and tell me a bit.
Yeah. We never actually stop in our day-to-day lives to ask each other questions like that, right? We never really do.
Now we will, though. Now we will. We're going to do it.
So growing up, it was funny. I had like 2 forces pulling me in different directions. My mom was a music and art teacher. So, we were being brought to, violin recitals, practices every week, music performances. It was like nonstop. And then my dad, I don't know if you even know this, but my dad was actually a pro football coach in Europe in a D1 division.
I did not.
Yeah. And he's always been like a super athlete, won like athlete of the year multiple times in high school, all this stuff. So even from a young age, since I was like 5 years old, my dad would like make it a fun competition between us. It was like, oh, let's see how long you could hold on to the monkey bars for, or, hey, let's see if you could get up this hill first. Let's sprint. And like, we had parks all around us where I lived. Like I had 3 parks within, walking distance or biking distance. So my early days of playing outside with my dad, was, without realizing it, him tricking us into like basically attempting these physical feats and making it a fun competition amongst each other, like me and my brother, because we were close in age. And so I think that also helped us be competitive in a sense, because he actually like made us competitive with each other. And my brother, because of that, we always pushed each other. Like we lived together up until I was 24. So we were both bodybuilding and training, and we couldn't let the other guy one up, Sure. So I actually have to say, if it wasn't for my dad introducing us to sports that early in life and creating that sense of competition in the house, I don't think I would have excelled the way I excelled in bodybuilding, So my brother also helped push me to do, like, I'd see him eating something. I'd be like, oh, wow, that's going to go like right over there. He'd call me out if I was cheating on my diet. So it was interesting. And my mom, poor thing, was caught in the middle of the crossfires of living with
the music and art teacher.
The amount of chicken breast we would send her to go buy at Costco was unholy. Yeah.
So when was the first time that you actually like touched weights? Because now this, what you're telling me, the scenarios that you're speaking of is like I guess prior to entering the gym, like the typical monkey bar thing, you go play at the park type thing, and your dad instilling subconsciously a bit, slipping it under the rug, so to speak, like the competition aspect. But speak to me about like, because I just want to know, like, how did that come about? Like, did he say one day, Chuck, you're old enough, I got to take you here because I got to show you how it's done? Like, how did that work?
Funny story, actually. So once we stopped like training in parks and whatnot.
Playing in parks,
mostly training.
Well, okay.
We always played sports. So my first experience of training was just for the sake of being better at what sport we were playing. So it was never really weightlifting. It was a lot of dryland training.
Performance
style. Like, we'd go to the gyms that had like the turf in it, a lot of plyos, a lot of own body weight stuff. But I actually remember the first time my dad took me to the gym was 2 years before he opened his own gym. He was a trainer at Monster. And
which is a gym here in the Montreal area.
Yeah, in the West Island. And I hated it. I went when I was like 14. I went to go weightlift, and I just remember not knowing how to breathe right while weightlifting, and I got like super nauseous and dizzy after like my first like 4 or 5 sets of like really trying to push as much weight as I could. And so like I got turned off by weightlifting, and I was like, screw that, I'm just going to keep doing my dryland training. And I weighed like 120 pounds, right? And it was really only when he actually opened his own gym when I was around 16, that I was like, okay, well, now I have a free gym membership. And it was like a 5-minute walk from where I was going to school at the time. And it was really my first job, was working for my dad, which of course you could imagine was
what kind of
interesting.
Very.
Yeah. So, so really it was like when my dad opened his first gym was when I really started getting into weightlifting, and he taught me everything he knew about weightlifting, and he was basically trying to make me a coach at the gym as well, so I could start training people
under
get
his
my
wing.
certification and under his wing and all that stuff. And then I fell in love with it because I immediately started seeing results. At the same time, I started eating better and eating more, and I liked it. I just fell in love with it. I was hooked. I remember my first year of weightlifting, I gained like close to 20 pounds. Yeah. But I weighed 125 pounds at the same height I am today.
And also considering the fact that was a very good age to which you took advantage of, because you're in your growing stages, like between that 16, even 22.
You start to thicken out as a guy.
Absolutely. And I see a lot of kids nowadays that like immediately, if they're not overweight and just the average kid, or even not like very skinny, like that 120 pound kid, I see a lot of them like not eating enough, not taking advantage of those years, or testosterone, their growing pains, that phase, not taking advantage of it. I took advantage of it so much, I remember.
Yeah.
And I think that's what formed so much of my foundation, just everything.
Yeah.
Everything comes from those years because I took advantage of it. And I see so many kids nowadays like that just don't take advantage of it, that go in like a calorie deficit for like a month. I'm like, what are you doing?
I think the earlier you start, the better. Like this nonsense of it's going to stunt your growth. It's bullshit. Because my dad started weightlifting when he was like 12, 13, and he's like 5'11".
Yeah.
And I'm 5'9".
Yeah.
So like, what's his excuse? Like,
Exactly.
It's silly.
If like, I'll add on to that, especially if like, obviously, like just from my perspective, I wouldn't want someone that's like 14 now going to try to put a lot of compression on their spine.
No,
but
not
do it
heavy
intelligently.
Squats. Yeah, no, I wouldn't do any like super heavy compression on the spine. So basically the only two things I wouldn't make them do is like super heavy squats with the barbell or really heavy overhead press.
Exactly.
Other than that, like, I mean, I know that if I would have started weightlifting even 2 years sooner, it would have laid a much better foundation for later.
Like, physically?
Oh yeah. Yeah. The earlier you start kids, the better, honestly.
Yeah. Whether that's weightlifting or whether that's body weight, plyos, whatever.
Because your body bounces back so fast when you're that age. I used to weightlift for like 2.5 hours just because I loved it. At the time, I was like, I thought more was better.
Oh, me too.
So I wouldn't do any cardio. I would just weightlift. I would do everything. I wouldn't leave until I've done like every exercise you could do for back on back day. And then like 2 days later, you're like, oh, I could train back again. You can't do that at 32, like versus 16. Like,
it's still hurting after 2 days.
And like, and the improvements you make at a young age are unbelievable. Like there's no way I'll be able to do what I did those first few years every year after,
Yep. So having your dad there, at the parks when you guys were playing and training. Having your brother there too. Because I imagine he played a huge role in terms of building that competitiveness, that drive to get better, the drive to beat that guy next to you, just build that mental strength or that mental, just have that mental tool. He obviously played in somewhat a positive aspect with that.
For sure.
How did that, in terms of the park, your dad, your brother, then transitioning over to weightlifting, and now you're getting older, how did that, and now you're able to look back on it, how did those times and those years as a young athlete, a young person in the gym, a young kid next to a dad that has a sports background that you see is opening up his facility and everything, how did just those amount of years develop and build the mental side where to now you have those tools? Like what do you see in terms of the connection from where you are now or like the past couple of years to that? What came out of that in terms of the mental aspect?
Well, I'll say this. It doesn't matter what sport you play or what profession you're in. I think the mental aspect is 80% of, like, I mean, you could be as talented and as gifted as you want to be, but if you don't build those kind of habits from a young age or instill those types of principles or mindset into your kids from a young age, it doesn't matter what they do in life or what field they choose to go into, whether it's sports or not. It's so much of their success is going to come from that mental aspect. Right? Because let's be honest, I was not the most physically gifted. I didn't put on muscle super easily. I had to work really hard for every inch. And if it wasn't for that mental aspect or that determination or that competitiveness or that hunger for always needing more that my dad instilled in us from a very, very young age and continued to press on with even as the years went by, I don't know if I would have gone to the point that I got to in bodybuilding.
In bodybuilding.
Yeah, for sure not. Yeah.
And also other areas of your life too?
For sure. Well, being a classically trained musician also requires a lot of dedication. Discipline. That's the biggest one.
Consistency.
Work ethic. Yeah. So all those things kind of also translated into sports. So I think if you want to build a really well-rounded human being, you shouldn't just one thing like that. Even if they're never going to make something of it or become a professional, like I didn't make music my career, I could have, but it still wasn't a waste. Like there's so much I learned from that and how much it helped me become the person I am today that I brought with me throughout everything else I've done. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Aside from training in the gym when you were like 16,
Yeah.
Did you play any specific sports, competitive sports?
Yeah. So I was a track athlete.
Nice.
Yeah. I did track. I did soccer up until like 14, but then hockey just took over. You know, once you get to a certain level in age, it's like, hey, you're on the ice 5 days a week, you know, and soccer was just in the summers, and I started going to hockey camps in the summers to train for the next season. So it was really like mostly hockey, but also soccer when I was young, track. I did boxing for a couple of years. I did karate for like 5 years when I was a kid, which, by the way, really helps with flexibility. I think had I not done that at a young age, I wouldn't be as flexible as I am today also. So that's why also as an athlete, if you want to build a good athlete, put them in a lot of different sports. I also did swimming. Like my parents,
amazing.
I hated swimming, but my parents forced me to do all my levels and do all the swimming classes every year at our like local pool, whatever. And just having your body move in a lot of different ways, I feel helps create a well-rounded athlete.
And or human being.
And or person. Yeah.
Person.
So like I was saying before, having, you know, the arts and having sports, it helped because they were two very different universes. Even the types of people that they attracted and the types of interactions that you experience. So I always tell my parents that it was the best thing they could have done was to really force me to do both. And at a competitive level, not just, I'm just going to do this for fun.
Yeah, to get 8th place.
Yeah, like they were like, no, you're doing this and you're going to go compete as a violin soloist. I was 5. Wow. Who does that at 5? Like I just wanted to play with my fucking toys, you know?
So your mom, you know, had the music and art side. Your dad was more the sports, quote unquote, army-like mindset, if that makes sense.
Little Joe Sargent-y. Yeah.
There we go. We'll use that.
Yeah, he was an intense character.
So when you were in the field or the universe, like you just said, in the music and art space, specifically violin, which we'll get into a bit later, did your dad have some sort of an influence also, or did he play a certain role even in the music and art universe, and vice versa too? Speaking of your mom, did she also have, because you know, I'm not in the music space, I've never been, but I know it takes a lot of dedication, discipline, consistency, focus. You know, it's solo, like you were just saying. So was your mom also influential or play a certain role also when you're playing sports, and then vice versa with your dad? Because you had your dad the sports side and then your mom the music art side. Did it did they share? I'm interested to know that.
That's a very interesting question. I'll say this: neither of them really understood the other side, but they always supported and encouraged it,
which I think is so important.
Yeah. So my dad was like, you know, every week violin classes, he was supporting, he was paying for it, and he loved it. He was always so proud of it. He would never talk down about it. He would actually like show me off to other kids. Like I remember once he brought me with my violin to play for my whole hockey team in the locker room when I was like a little kid. So you know what I mean? Like he encouraged it, even if he didn't really understand that world. There was never a musician. He saw the merit, I think. And my mom, she had her own way of, you know, supporting the whole bodybuilding or fitness dream, even though, again, she was like, I don't understand this whole like protein powders. But like she supported us in other ways. Like she would go and, you know, get whatever groceries we needed. She helped cook all of our meals when we were starting out. So like that was her way of supporting our dream and what we were doing, even though like she didn't really get it or understand or come from any sports background. So it was cool because both my parents did kind of support in their own ways, you know.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
That's so interesting. And at the same time, like just hearing that, I wouldn't say the word is just lucky. I guess we could use that word, but it's very cool to see, because a lot of young kids don't necessarily probably have that much support as you had.
I was very lucky to have the parents I had.
Yeah.
And nobody's perfect. They weren't perfect, but I was very fortunate to have parents that were very involved in their kids' lives.
Yeah,
for sure.
I could relate to that. Same thing with my parents.
Yeah.
Like, you know, my mom understood what hockey was. I mean, but like didn't understand it to the degree as to like my dad.
But I bet she still drove you to all the practices,
or tried, or like, you know,
bought you your hockey equipment, top of the line equipment, whatever you needed.
And exactly, and also not talk down on it, like you mentioned.
Yep.
You know, so because you could easily go that route, especially if you don't understand something, and easily talk down on it. But I think it's so important, and very important too, like for kids to be in sports.
It is.
Or to be around sports.
Especially or team sports. But any sports, if you could get them in any sports, do it.
Any type of discipline, any type of thing that when you wake up in the morning, that kid knows, like, I have practice tonight. Yeah. Or I got to, you know, sleep. Or I got to just chase something and work towards something.
Oh, it helps to keep them out of trouble. I'll be the first one to say it. If I wasn't kept busy, I was the type of kid that would have gone probably into a lot of trouble as a teenager. But I didn't do drugs. I didn't drink. I think I got drunk for the first time at like 17 at my best friend's house party. But it was because my day was so packed with this sport, that sport, violin recital, practice. By the end of my day, I was finished. I was go to bed, wake up, repeat, go to school. Yeah. So like having your kids in a lot of different activities is a great way to keep them out of trouble as well. And you also create friendships and meet people through these avenues as well. Yeah. Which is good.
Well, look, that's how we kind of met.
Yeah,
if it wasn't for my hockey career and background, I would have never met you, your dad.
Yeah.
So
I'm
super grateful for that. That's
True.
so cool. Yeah, and just because I didn't speak about it so much, just to give a bit of context, I met Chuck through his dad, because when I was 16, if I'm not mistaken, or 15, I was looking to obviously elevate my performance on the ice, just because I saw that I had a very small physique. I had some encounters that didn't really work out to my favor in terms of like training camps and stuff. So I got back to my computer. I was like, I got to find something or someone to help me develop my performance so I could beat out all the other people and actually make the teams that I want to make. And I found your dad on like Kijiji or something.
No way.
Jesus and he had then gave me his number, said to call him, and I'm like 15, you know. So I get on the phone, I'm like speaking with him, and I end up going to his facility, which is the facility that you know I'm speaking of. And I remember this is the first encounter with your dad. Okay, I still remember it to this day. And like, you know, just take into consideration, like if you're listening or watching, like, I'm 15 years old. I'm super tiny. I was so small. Like, this is my pretty much first time walking in a gym, or actually going to see like a trainer. A trainer. And being trained by this person. So I arrived there, and this is the first encounter, like, you know, prior to the phone call. I'm walking in there with like a little, it looks like a vending machine almond bag, and I'm eating the almonds. And before he even says like hi, he's like, I can't remember word for word what he said, but he was like, you know, what are you doing? You're eating almonds, and we're about to trade. And just the encounter, I was like, what did I do wrong? Almonds? And just that, I was like, I'm kind of in the right place, oddly, how I received it. And
by the way, he said it probably a lot more abruptly and at a much higher octane and level.
Bag.
Like, his voice was loud. He probably kind of yelled at him.
First
time ever meeting him.
Very precise. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're getting the picture of what went on.
Yeah.
But I remember just from that day, I was like, this is it. This is the place. This is the person. Something so different that I got attached to was nothing that had to do so much with the physical aspect in terms of like the exercise or whatnot, but it was his mentality and the approach that he took as like an army sergeant. And for me, I was like, you know, and yes, we could put the exercises and the understanding and the knowledge, but above that, for me, the way I was like, whoa, I like this, was all that. Is that he was able to bring your mental state into this sphere or bubble and realize the potential that you had, and realize like you still were able to do all this. And that formed everything. And I remember the year later, I was lapping people on the ice.
Didn't you make prep school?
Yeah, I played midget AAA.
Yeah.
Then went on and played junior in the States, junior A in Ontario, came back here, played a bit of junior AAA. But like that shaped everything. I was lapping people. I had like a third lung.
Yeah.
It was so crazy. And just my mental strength. I remember like that there was a shift, and people would always say, like, I wasn't the biggest person. I'm still not the biggest person, but like I remember everyone would say like, he works like a dog. That was the whole description.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of that from your dad, and that's how we met, because then after that you took over and you were training me and one of my other hockey buddies, and you had the same type of tools and structure, and I was just like, that's the best. That's the best. That's what kids need. That's what people in sports need. That mentality, that approach. I loved it, and that's how we met. How's your training like been lately?
Not the way it used to be when we were training you at the gym. But yeah, I mean, our mantra was always to make it much tougher. I know everyone nowadays about trying to make everything less tough.
Comfortable.
Yeah, but we were the opposite. It was like, let's make this as tough and as uncomfortable as possible, so that when they step on the field, on the basketball court, or on the ice, that 1 minute shift seems easy. So like we would say, oh, you could do 25 squat jumps. Okay, here's a 25-pound weight vest. Now you're going to go do all your squat jumps with the 25-pound weight vest and wait, keep it on, because guess what? When you play hockey, your equipment gets wet. That was my dad's excuse for keeping a 25-pound weight vest on for an entire hour workout.
In addition to that, there was like a 10-pound like stick-looking bar.
Body bars.
Body
bars. For the hockey players, you see those so that their stick would feel like nothing. When they
Which, to me, I've never seen anything since. No one's doing that for hockey players.
Well,
look, why?
Our athletes were getting such good results that my dad ended up coaching guys that went on to win Stanley Cups. One particular guy with the Boston Bruins, he also trained Vincent Cavalier around the same time. He started training you as well. So I'm sure you didn't know that, but my dad was already basically the strength coach for a lot of pro athletes. We had a couple NCAA Division I basketball players that lived in Montreal, so they'd come back during the off season and train with him. Some football players, soccer players, but yeah, it was mostly hockey players. But that was our mantra: tougher, and it's the harder, the better.
And it's crazy because the most difficult exercise physically and mentally, and you could probably guess what I'm about to say. What was it?
Was it the plank?
Yes.
Oh, nobody likes doing the plank.
The plank,
and
bro.
He was like, if you can't do a 5-minute plank, I don't consider you an athlete.
He pushed
That was his standard. It was a 5-minute plank if you wanted to be considered a real athlete.
And that first day that I walked in with the almonds, he, made me do pull-ups. He made me do sprints in like the gym, because it was like a gym area to the facility, and like a gymnasium. And also a gym. But he made me do pull-ups. And then at the end, he's like, drop down. We're going to do the plank. And then he puts the timer. And I needed to hit 5 minutes. And it was so brutal to get to 5 minutes.
And he'd purposely always do it at the very end of the workout.
Always.
That was like the abs or the core was always like the workout finisher. So you'd be like ready to just roll over and like pass out basically from the workout. And then you'd be like, okay, time to do the plank. End of the workout. And when your shoulders are burnt and everything's burnt, and it's just like, what?
And that was the first day, and then I don't know how many months later, but I ended up doing like a 16-minute plank nonstop. But like, if it was all mental. After you cross a certain like checkpoint in terms of the time, it was all mental. And so training lately for you?
Training for me lately, it's mostly just I go to the gym 4 days a week. I play hockey once a week. Love it. That's That's like my therapy. Time with the boys.
That's
just
good.
play sports. Sports is still like my one true love. It's fun.
Yeah.
You know, and so I weightlift 4 days a week. I do some cardio.
That's good.
And I play hockey once a week, and that's it, really.
Nutrition. What does nutrition look like?
Nutrition, I'm actually pretty good, like 85% of the time. I'll usually have a shake a day. Breakfast is usually some eggs, or some Vector cereal or some oatmeal. And then I'll always have like a fish or a chicken for lunch with some veggies, and same at dinner. I'll have like a bison burger with more veggies and maybe some rice.
Throughout the year.
I keep it simple.
Which is
that works easiest for me. I've always taught my clients, because when I was first coaching, I was always like, oh, we got to do it the way I did it, and that's the best way because it worked for me. But that in reality, over time, you get better and better as a coach as well. I've learned that the best meal plan and workout plan is the one that's easiest for the client to follow, because they're way less likely to fall off the bandwagon.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, you want consistency, which is going to bring about progress.
Yes.
So making everybody eat 6-7 meals a day
is not realistic.
It's not the best approach. No.
Definitely not realistic. And one of the main questions that I always ask my clients or potential clients is, what do you do as work? Do you go to school?
Yeah.
What does your schedule look like? Because that changes.
Yeah.
I don't, there's a huge change. And I always base myself off of like what their schedule looks like. What do they do as work?
100%.
What do they have access to? So that's a very important aspect that you mentioned. Over the years, did you ever, like, there's a lot of trial and error, as you may know, nutrition, workouts, whatever it is. There's a lot of trial and error with a lot of things. Have you dabbled into different, quote unquote, diets or ways of eating throughout the years?
Yes, I tried every single one. Here's my shtick, okay? How can I have an opinion on something or tell somebody else about the experience of being on that type of diet or even supplement or type of training program if I haven't done it myself? So I was really my own guinea pig. I tried being vegetarian for an entire month. I was like, let me do this for a month. Never tried vegan. I always still had some eggs, whatever, but I tried being vegetarian for a month. I've done 0 carb diets, keto. I don't know if I actually wasn't in ketosis, because I was still eating, probably a few cups of greens a day.
Yeah.
And that's usually enough to even knock you out of keto. So everybody who thinks they're in ketosis, chances are you're not. If you're eating 3 cups of vegetables, even if it's like nightshades, you're not in ketosis.
Yeah.
So I even tried like 0 carb diets, like no fruit, no grains, 0 carbs, except for vegetables, protein, and fats.
Yeah.
Tried that. Tried carb cycling, high carb, low fat, high fat, low carb, not 0 carb, but I've tried them all. Okay. The only one I haven't tried, honestly, is the carnivore diet.
My girlfriend and I are going to fully commit to it, like at the start of November.
So like 0 fruits, 0 vegetables.
No. So there's carnivore.
Just organs and
there's
meat.
carnivore, and then there's animal based.
Okay.
We're going to do animal based, which is no vegetables. Fruits is okay. A healthy fat, so like avocado.
Nuts.
We both eat very well.
Right.
Because I'm someone who's routine, and I always say is that's the only thing I know. I don't know the other stuff. I don't, in terms of, obviously I know, but I never, that's how I'm wired. When I walk into a grocery store or something, I'm just, that's all I know, quote unquote.
Right. I'll save you the trouble. Tofu ain't it.
Oh,
I tried being vegetarian for a month.
Yeah. And then there's energy levels, how you feel, your strength, recovery, for sure. Mental clarity, a bunch of different things. Yeah. But I always say, like, too, if something works for you and you feel like A1 top notch,
everyone's different.
Yeah, do works best for you. But in terms of like the whole animal based or carnivore, in other words, but animal based, like that's something we'll do.
Very cool.
Like I already still eat like a lot of steak, chicken, beef liver.
I actually like liver, but when it's like chopped up, and I don't like eating liver steak. But.
Okay. But yeah, we want to do that just to
Very
see,
cool.
just to see, just to see, because I've, listened to a lot of people who actually dabbled their nose into, animal based, in other words, and there's a lot of positive, and especially just the fact that you're eliminating vegetables.
A lot of the anecdotal evidence that I've seen for carnivore diet is...
When you say carnivore, animal based?
Animal based or carnivore,
Okay.
both, to be honest,
Yep.
has been really, really amazing. And for people that are suffering from like chronic illnesses or inflammatory illnesses, even for like clearing up their skin, I know a few people that like it really, really helped change their entire health. Complete 180.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna kind of try that. So that's one that you haven't done yet.
No,
Or tried.
I've never tried going purely animal based and just fruits, or completely carnivore.
Would it be something that interests you to try?
Absolutely. I'm always open to trying stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Along with training, what does recovery look like in terms of and not even speaking about necessarily like now, but have you done and or kept the consistency with certain recovery tools, massage, sauna, cold plunge, there's a bunch of different other things, but have there been things that were like a part of your routine as a staple?
So I'm really bad now, but when I was in the thick of it, I would do yoga once a week, minimum once every 2 weeks, like minimum. I usually try to aim for once every single week, and I really, really liked it. I also saunaed. I don't want to say religiously, but even till this day, it's the one thing that I still really enjoy doing, but I'll never do it for more than like 15 minutes. I know he like lives in it. But yeah, you belong in the Sahara.
That's amazing though.
But my sauna, even at my condo, is crazy hot. It gets up to like 196
Fahrenheit, which is probably, what is it, 92 probably?
It's hot.
Yeah.
So the steam room, the sauna, those I've always enjoyed and incorporated. I like how they make me feel. Injuries, I'm not good with the cold plunging. I just put a bag of peas from the freezer.
That works.
Kind of old school.
Yeah.
Does it
works.
really work? I don't know.
Yeah, so 196 or around that, it's like 92 Celsius, which is, to me, it's a very good,
Perfect temperature.
oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah, usually my max in that is like I'll sit in that for 15 minutes.
That's
after
amazing.
workout.
That's amazing. And just that, whether it's once, twice a week, or that's so good.
That's usually what I do.
Yeah. How do you feel after the sauna?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I love it. I literally feel like I'm just sweating out all the toxins in my body.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because I just believe it.
Placebo or
but
something.
I just genuinely, it's the same feeling I get after I do hot yoga. Like I get out of the hot yoga and I feel great.
Amazing.
Yeah, I feel great.
God, I love hot yoga.
So I just go based on how things make me feel. Like screw whatever you read online or what you think you know. If you try something and you feel great after doing it, just continue doing it.
100%. We had we shared a past with competitions.
Yes.
How was that winning your first competition? Because obviously we kind of shared that together, that winning moment, but we never actually got the time to sit down like this and break that down. And I know it's already been years because I shared with you recently that it was like, what was it, 8 or 9 years ago? How was that?
It was, I think, no, it was more, dude. It was 10? Almost 11. Because I did that first show it was literally 2 days before, or a day before my 21st birthday.
Oh,
and I'm 32. I'll never forget, it was like a day before my birthday.
So crazy.
So yeah, so I was actually 20 when I did that show. So we're looking at like 11 and a half years ago. Crazy.
Insane.
But you know how they say like there's certain moments in your life that like launch your life in a different trajectory, or like your life was completely changed because of that one moment. Winning that first show for me and having that experience was paramount in my future success. I mean, after that, even though it was like a small regional show, there weren't that many people at the time that were doing men's physique or bodybuilding shows in general. It really exploded in like the 5 or 6 or 7 years following that year that we did our first show together. So after that first show, I picked up like a meal prep sponsor. I picked up another sponsor with a supplement company, RECLUSE. And next thing you knew, I was getting flown out to where was it? Halifax for nationals, you know, and they were paying for my photo shoots, and it was crazy. And having that victory, it gave me a lot of, I want to say, confidence and self-belief that, wow, I worked so hard and put all my effort into this thing that I knew, by the way, nothing about at the time. It was my first ever show. I didn't know any of the promoters, any of the big names in the industry, nothing. I didn't even know how to prepare for my spray tan. But that success really launched me into basically the rest of my fitness career, and gave me that belief that, hey, listen, if you work really hard at something, you could succeed at whatever you really, really set your mind and heart to. And so that was like a very, very specific moment in my life that like completely, I think, changed my life forever.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Even to that extent?
Yeah. I mean, it led to so many other opportunities, and you know, had I really sucked that first show, maybe I wouldn't have wanted to compete again or really take the fitness thing super far. And I think having success early on gave me a bit more of that confidence to be like, hey, you could do this. Like, keep working at it. It could take you places.
When was the last competition?
Pains me to say, but it was when I was 24, so 7 years ago. Wow. And it really sucks because I was 2.5 months out from making a comeback at a show, and then COVID hit, and my show got canceled. So I was already like 2 months into prep. I was looking phenomenal. Wow. Yeah. And I was doing most of my own coaching at that point, you know, and yeah, and they just called off the show. And then you know, COVID hit, all the gyms were closed. I kind of lost that spark for fitness and that passion, just because, you know, if I couldn't train at a gym, it just wasn't the same.
Yeah.
And I used that opportunity to go into real estate.
Speaking about real estate.
Yeah.
Give me a bit of context. What's been going on with that? How did you get introduced to it? Why? When? Now you just kind of answered it. Give me a bit of the understanding.
Well, it's interesting. I actually wanted to go into real estate when I was 21. I was in my last year of CEGEP, or 20. And I told my parents I wanted to drop out of school because I just didn't care about anything that I was studying at the time. Still didn't in university. So I was like, yeah, I think it's an interesting avenue. And the one thing I noticed is all the guys that were the most successful, the one thing they all had in common was they had a really big real estate portfolio, or it was part of their success.
When you say like the big guys, or however you just put it, not specifically real estate, just like successful people. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like the people that I knew that had a lot of money, like the Grant Cardones and stuff like that. They
had a good rolling thing.
Yeah. They all seem to like have money invested in real estate. That was like a big staple in their portfolio, you know? And I knew some people that were already in that field, a couple years older than me. And my parents were like, no, you should just go to university, get your degree, finish, and then that's it. So I was like, okay, whatever. It's definitely a big risk going into that. Plus I was so young. I was like, who's going to trust me to buy a house? You know, I'm 20, 21, whatever. And then when COVID hit, I was like, you know what? This is the best opportunity I'll ever have to learn a new skill and to get the ball rolling, because I'll never have as much time as I do right now. Because I was already running a business where I was putting in 40 hours a week plus, and it was making me a lot of money. And now that the gyms are closed, I wasn't really doing much personal training. I was just doing the online coaching. So now I had several hours in my day that opened up.
Were free.
Yeah.
Freed up.
So I was like, hey, this would be like the best time to really give it a go and revisit that. And that was it.
So, okay, when you were that 2021, that thought that you had in your mind, and then you got the advice from your parents saying go to university, don't necessarily
get a degree. Yeah.
From 2021, COVID was what, like 3.5 years ago, I think. 3.5 years
started
ago.
Like 3 years ago.
So between when you had that thought at 21, so did you put that on the back burner and then revisit that when you were like 28, 29?
Exactly.
Really?
Yeah. So I revisited about 7 years later. Yeah. And the thing was, it takes like a year or a year plus before you could actually start working as a broker. So from the time I signed up for the courses online to the time I finished my exam, got my certification, yada, 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 got my license, and was actually able to start, like, it was already more than halfway through that COVID era.
So how did that snowball build up when you were 28, 29? Like, did you just realize, like, one night you were like, hey Chuck, I got like 7 hours free in my day because of yada, yada, yada. Yeah. How did that come about? I'm so interested in that because obviously revisiting something after 7 years, it takes a lot of, I guess, courage and like, okay, F it, like, I'm doing this now.
Well, people also have to understand that I was in fitness since the age of 15. So after a certain amount of time doing the same thing, it gets a little repetitive. Kind of feels a little bit like Groundhog Day, right? And I still do online coaching, and why bury that business? It's on autopilot at this point. So I was like, okay, I saw a few other guys that I knew that were really successful with it, that I was friends with. And like I said, I mean, once I wasn't able to train in gyms anymore or run a real personal training business anymore, I was like, this is my perfect opportunity to learn a new skill, something that I think that's valuable. And guess what? Even if it fails and I absolutely hate the work, I still would have learned really important skills that are going to help me when it comes time for me to invest in real estate or buying a home, et cetera, et cetera. And it already has. So I figured, worst case scenario, I learn about real estate. Best case scenario, I learn about real estate and I make money.
Yes.
So
you have that tool.
Yeah. And nobody could take that away from me anymore. So it doesn't, like, for me, it was like there was no really lose-lose situation. Yeah.
Any tips for first-time buyers? Okay, is that a big question?
Right now, it's going to be tough, especially if you're a single income, right? So what I've noticed is the properties that have been hurt the most recently are condos. Well, like smaller condos, anything that's like in the about $500,000 range and lower, because who's buying those? It's usually first-time homeowners or young people who are,
looking to
exactly,
get away from
or a young couple. And so those people have just been wiped out because of the interest rates. Houses, everybody still needs a house. Families need a place to live. You have two incomes. They're usually in their mid-30s or even, late 20s and up. So on paper, they're a lot more solid, whereas for a condo that's like 500-600 square feet or less, like, it's usually somebody in their mid-20s looking to buy their first property for like $350,000.
Right.
Impossible when interest rates are at 6%.
Right.
The stress test right now is at 9%.
The what? Sorry.
Stress test that the banks are using,
which is what? So for people who don't understand what that means, what
so
does that mean?
Like the interest rate that the bank gives you isn't the interest rate that they're actually using when they're doing their calculation to see if they're going to approve you on a mortgage, right? So you have like the stress test and then the actual interest rate that the bank's going to give you on your property. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
So stress test, STRESS, like stress test.
We just call it the stress test. Okay.
Yeah. Just for people who don't
understand. So they
understand.
base it off the Bank of Canada rate. And I mean, it's tough. It's tough. Yeah.
Wow.
So my advice to first time home buyers, if you want to get into the market, you're going to need to save up for sure a lot more for a bigger down payment, just because chances are you're not co-signing with, your husband or your wife who also brings in $150,000 a year or even $85,000 a year. So you don't have a really strong file that you could present to the bank.
Makes sense.
So if you're, first-time homeowner, 25, 26, 27, you're making, even if it's like $100,000 a year, you're going to need a much bigger down payment to get approved on that same mortgage, right?
Yeah, I've even heard of certain scenarios of people actually giving like a huge down payment and still not getting like...
Yeah.
It's very difficult even there.
You need co-signers or whatnot. Yeah.
Wow. And would you say that's just because of the recent changes in terms of like the percentage or the rate and all that?
Yeah. And for people that are like waiting for interest rates to come down, the reality is I think the days of like 1.5 to 2.5% interest are like over. We're probably going to be telling our grandchildren stories about that.
It's like, I have 2.5, Chuck.
Yeah. Keep it. Yeah. But yeah, like I do think they're going to come down, but I don't think they're ever going to go back, or at least not for a very long time. Real estate, it's on a much larger cycle. Yeah. Usually we look at real estate on a 30-year cycle. And so I personally actually think that when interest rates are high is when you could find the best deals on properties. Because sellers are obviously going to be a little more desperate. There's less buyers in the market that are shopping. And so interest rates will fluctuate. They'll always fluctuate. They never stay the same. But what you can't change is the purchase price of the property. So it's like a short-term pain for a long-term gain, right? So, okay, I bought this property this year for $100,000 less than I would have paid a year and a half ago. Sure, okay, 2.53% interest then. But what happens when my interest starts to come down? Trust me, you're not paying $100,000 more in interest in your first 2-3 years of your mortgage. So my advice to people would be take a shorter term right now, because there is a strong likelihood that they'll start to eventually come down. Who knows? I personally don't think for at least another 6 months to even a year, to be honest. But it's definitely a better deal to buy something at a huge discount now, pay a little bit more upfront, but then once your interest rate comes down, even if you're paying 20 grand more in interest at the beginning, the first few years, but you saved $100,000 on the property in terms of how much it would cost to purchase, the gap is still $80K. So did you still come out the winner?
I see.
Yeah. Even if it's costing you $20,000 more in interest than it would have costed you, a year and a half ago.
Yeah. You mentioned the word like desperate. It's true that a lot of people will end up being desperate and or have already started doing that because of a desperate state or situation that they're in. Like, I just got to sell. I got to sell. So many people, like, especially probably during COVID, where they're getting like these renovations or these things on their land, or they're like, I'll just shove it on my
line of credit,
line of credit,
mortgage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, they're probably in a situation where they're like, well, I gotta survive for my family. We gotta survive, so we'll sell. And
well, there's also a percentage of the population that just needs to move, right? Every year, you're gonna have people that for whatever reason need to move for work, have to relocate because of family, school zoning, whatever the case may be. There's always gonna be people that just need to either buy or sell a house. So you also have that aspect as well that people tend to ignore or forget about.
Yeah. So looking at it from the other side, and you kind of explained it a bit, but any tips for first-time sellers? For people who are looking to sell for the first time?
Don't sell alone.
Elaborate on that.
A lot of people think that they could sell a property themselves and skip out on, getting a broker and paying a commission. And you're probably going to actually lose more money trying to save 4% than if you pay a professional their 4% to properly market and sell your property.
And to, I imagine, take care of all the knickknacks of like getting the deal signed and settled.
That's the other thing when it comes to contracts. I mean, 80% of our course was literally real estate law and drafting.
Wow.
So if you're trying to sell your own property and you're trying to skimp out on 3, 4, or even 5%, and you don't word a clause properly, you're now not protecting yourself anymore. Yeah. So it's like, why take that risk? Like, would you rather buy a car from a dealership, and even if it's a used car, and, you know, buy insurance with it and have it checked, you know, bumper to bumper inspected?
Or
would you rather buy a car off Kijiji? And that's, by the way, between a $30,000 to a $60,000 item.
That makes more sense.
Now you're talking about the one biggest asset and investment you own, where there's hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line. So if you wouldn't do it for something a car that's like $30,000 to $60,000 or whatever, $80,000, why would you take that risk with your biggest asset? To me, it's crazy that people think that they'll just be okay.
So then segueing into speaking about, like, you know, choosing the right, I guess, real estate agent or person working for you and not selling alone. Any advice for someone, like, what should someone look for to kind of team up, in other words, with someone to sell? What should they look for in terms of, like, you know, I don't even know how that works. I've never actually sold anything in terms of, you know, real estate or something like a home or anything, but any advice in terms of searching or looking for the right real estate agent?
Of course. And actually, my best advice to anybody is to actually interview more than one person for the job. That's the best advice I could give. You're gonna invite them over to your house. They're gonna, you know, put together a market analysis of your property. They're gonna show you the comparables, all the homework that they did, and you'll be able to see or get a gut feeling as to who knows their shit the most, who actually put in the time before this meeting to really do their homework and study your property, and then from there, make your decision. So my recommendation is always interview a few people for the job.
I see.
Yeah. Don't just go with your brother's friend just because you know him and you guys used to go to parties together in high school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Interview a few people for the job. And actually, in my experience, working with friends and family is not the best, actually. Yeah.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
So ever since now you began the journey, we'll call it, of real estate and diving into that, I imagine you've accumulated or grew your real estate portfolio.
Yep.
If you want to share how many properties or whatever, that could be a cool topic. But the main question I have is, how does the management work? Like, how do you manage a portfolio if you have 5, 10, 15, 20 properties? Because before, the reason why I'm asking you about that is because before you mentioned, like, you know, during COVID, when I had my personal training business, I looked and I was like, damn, I have like hours that freed up. I'll do real estate. How does that work nowadays in terms of management and or time?
Right. So just like most other businesses, you have to delegate, right? We all have jobs. We all work between 30 to 50 or 60 hours a week, whatever it is. Joey doesn't work, by the way. This is all he does. So in Joey's case, 10 hours a week.
You should have added a 7th point on that list at the beginning.
Doesn't work. Not employed. Never has been. No.
Just roasts in the sauna, and that's all he does.
Just sits in saunas. That's it. And hopes for the best. So you have to delegate. So if your plan is to invest in a lot of doors, you got to, and unless you want to pull your own hair out, I would really try to get a really good management company. And again, just like with car insurance, shop around, interview a lot of people, get different quotes, look at their portfolio, try to talk to somebody that they already work with to get their feedback. Because if you work full time, you have kids, yada, 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 you go to the gym, like, you're not going to really do a good job of managing 20 or even 12 doors if you have a 12-plex or 2 6-plexes or whatever, than somebody whose full-time job is just to check up on all their properties every week or give you a report at the end of every month on how your property is doing, what needs attention, what doesn't, etc.
So when did it come to the point where you were like, I got to delegate? And I imagine, yeah.
So I sold my condo last year, and I just invested in a new construction, a 26-plex in Gatineau with 2 partners. Yes.
Wow, Chuck. Nice.
Yes. And I'm lucky because one of the people that I'm partnered with, one of the other investors, he's already really big in that area. And our management, or the guy who owns the management company, has skin in the game as well. So he's actually already invested with my partner on another building together and on another building in the same project, because he's building like
one side by side.
Yeah, like 8 of them, I think, side by side. So that was easy. I didn't have to do any heavy lifting or shopping around. It was like, okay, this guy already works with my partner. They already like each other. They're invested together on another building. There's that rapport. There's that trust. He's already doing a good job with his other buildings. Perfect. Easy. I didn't have, it was one less thing to worry about. And that was also one of the things that made this partnership interesting to me. And for everybody out there, when you're looking for a partner,
real estate or not,
you should always look at what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and what are they bringing to the table? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? I don't recommend also, again, partnering with your best buddy or your best friends just because you guys get along and you
be like, I want to make money.
Exactly. Like, if you both have the same weaknesses, that's not going to be a good partnership.
So are there any specific strengths and or weaknesses, probably not the weakness part, but are there any certain points where you're like, does he have this? Does he have if he doesn't have that, you know automatically right away that that's not going to be an option to partner with?
Well, one of the things that was really important for me, because I don't have a huge portfolio to fall back on when applying for the loan with the banks, was the fact that I needed to find a partner that did.
I see.
So that we could get the loan. The hardest thing is if you have a down payment, it's not having the money for the down payment. It's getting a bank to approve you on a big project like that. It's getting the loan. So for me, the most important thing was teaming up with somebody that had that strength at the banks. And he already has a lot of buildings. And so just the file with him alone would have passed. So I didn't have to worry about that anymore. And the fact that he has experience in that area was another bonus. And he knows that market well. And then the fact that he also knew a management company and a manager that he's already worked with in the past, home run.
Nice.
So for me, it was like, hey, this is like, and what was he getting in return? You know, It's like, okay, well, that seems pretty one-sided. He just needed to raise more capital. He needed money. That was my contribution. So it was symbiotic.
Nice.
And by doing this one deal, I'm also going to learn a lot. So, and hopefully it'll turn into
build from there.
Yeah, into other
build
deals in the
even
future.
more from there.
Yeah, hopefully.
Nice. I'm huge into things like AI and tools. Obviously, digitally, I'm huge into just the media side of things. In terms of computer and software.
That's your
and
strength.
All.
That's my
I like
weakness.
that. I know. That's my weakness. So, kind of speaking about that, are there any things like virtual visits or, because I imagine COVID must have been like a certain adaptation, or there was a lot of pivoting going on. It's because I'm mentioning that because I had these two of my friends here, two guys that were like, they helped generate leads for, well, they were recently doing specifically real estate agents, and now they moved more into
commercial.
No, like financial advisors or something like that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They said it in French. So I'm not too sure if I'm translating it correctly, but they were doing that. and they mentioned the word often was pivoting, adapting during COVID, because their sales personally and together dropped 80% during COVID because they were aimed towards real estate agents, and because they couldn't do their in-person visits, it affected their business.
It's hard to retain clients that you can never meet.
Exactly. And for them, creating leads for real estate agents, that was very difficult. Yeah. Specifically, and especially Quebec, because that's where they're based. So does a certain, like, is there anything virtual or AI implemented into like visits, or how does that work?
So there are virtual visits. I personally don't like them. But if you're an international investor, you kind of don't have a choice. Unless you get on a plane and you want to go see the property, you know, it is what it is. But I was lucky that when I started real estate, it was already like a year and a half-ish into COVID. So some of the rules started getting a little more lax. So we were now allowed to do visits in person. We just had to wear masks. So I was never doing real estate at the very beginning when it was like, you couldn't do visits in person. It was all virtual. You just had to look at videos and pictures, and that's it.
Did that person need to wear a mask also? Virtually?
Honestly, I wouldn't put it past our Quebec government.
Bro, because there was some Zoom meetings and stuff where people...
they'd be on Zoom calls...
Wearing their
mask.
What the hell?
In their own house. Oh. My favorite is people driving
car
their
with the
car alone.
With the windows up.
By the way, driving in their car alone, windows up, wearing like 2 masks.
And then the third one is hanging on their rearview mirror.
You got to ask, how many condoms does that person wear when they have sex? If they're wearing 2 masks with the window rolled
We're going to clip that.
I hope not. Put it out there.
So that kind of answers it for the virtual. I'm just curious because I like to see, because obviously that could probably factor in terms of time, accessibility, like you say, for international deals. But at the same time, there's pros and cons for a lot of different things. And especially, I think if someone's strength is that in-person, touchy-feely conversation type thing, you want to take advantage of your strength.
That is my strength. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I'm not a biggest fan of, and I mean, listen, when you have a lot of listings, you don't have a choice, like setting up a lockbox with a key and just letting them do the visit. I find that when I'm able to be there and take the client through the property, I'm bombastic. I like to highlight the pros and kind of,
give that homey feeling to them. And
well, that's it. Or even give them ideas on how they could change the space based on what their vision is. So I'll ask questions. I'll be like, oh, so, what would you do different with this property? I see. Because if they don't like something about it, it's like, okay, well, what would you like to change or add or whatever? And then I'm like, oh, well, you could actually build a wall there. It would work because it's just gyprock and, there's no beam in the way. But like, so I just start giving them ideas. And a lot of times they get into it and they're like, oh, yeah, I didn't think of that. You could actually, okay, cool. And,
it builds their vision.
Yeah. Or even just adding, changing the light fixtures and the blinds could make, and painting the walls makes a huge difference on how a place could feel. So it was interesting. I had a client and like the house was like a horrible color. It was a good property, but like the blinds were horrendous. The walls were painted different colors in every single room. And the light fixtures were hideous. So they were great clients because like we started getting visits at first and we weren't really getting a lot of action. And the 1 or 2 offers we got were low ball offers. I was like, listen, guys, I know it's going to be a pain in the ass, but spend like $7,000-$8,000, change all your blinds, paint the whole place fucking white.
Neutral.
Just paint it white or an off white. Change like 6-7 of these light fixtures and let's resume the visits. They hammered it out in a weekend.
Amazing.
They didn't even have a guy come over to paint. The dad and the mom just like,
good.
They did it. We resumed the visits. Nothing else was changed, by the way. Just those 3 things, right? All the window coverings, light fixtures, and just repainted the whole house white. Okay. And I just repositioned some furniture. That was it. We ended up getting like, I think it was like 5 offers in one weekend. And they ended up selling for $30K over asking.
God, that pain paid off.
Because people have a hard time visualizing what it could look like.
Totally agree with that.
Even if you're like trying to highlight it and selling it, they have a hard time. So there's certain things you could do that will really like help your property sell for more.
Have a huge positive impact.
Yeah, for sure.
I totally agree with that. That the people don't necessarily have the larger vision of what it could be or how it could look.
Yeah.
Since you started your real estate journey, has there been a very rewarding and or challenging experience that you've came across that you'd like to? One that really stands out though. That whether anything, one that really stands out though. And I'm asking you this just because I don't have a real estate portfolio or I haven't really dove into that. So I'm curious to see what.
Yeah. The biggest challenge is not knowing necessarily your drafting, your law. Those you have to know your stuff inside out. To be a good broker and a coach. So it kind of translated from fitness, which is why I still like doing coaching. It keeps me sharp with dealing with different personality types. But the one thing and the biggest challenge compared to fitness is it's still a service. You're selling your service. It's a service-based business or industry, is dealing with people when they're at their most stressed and at their worst. Fitness, it's very different. People are coming in, they're sweating, endorphins are up. You're getting them in a very positive environment. When they're usually feeling great about themselves. This is the 1 hour a day they're taking away and giving to themselves. Real estate, if you don't have thick skin and you're not comfortable within the chaos of constantly dealing with issues, stress, people being at their most emotional state, you're going to crash and burn. You have to know how to deal with that, because that's the biggest challenge. Because now you're dealing with people when there's hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars on the line. You're not getting the prettiest side of them ever. If something goes wrong, no matter what it is, it's always your fault. You're getting blamed. And if things go great, it's like, oh, thanks. We'll call you for the next time we want to do a transaction. That's it. So you have to learn to basically put out fires all the time and manage that stress. And sometimes you're shopping with 6 different couples or clients or people at once while you have 2-3 listings that you're also trying to sell. So if you're not good at time management, or you like to have your weekends, or you're a person that really likes to have a lot of control over your schedule, don't do it. It's tough. So I'd say that is actually the biggest challenge.
Wow.
In being a broker, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very high stress, extremely. Yeah, you need thick skin.
You have it.
Yeah.
You're good enough.
If anybody knows my father, you would know why.
Yeah, they kind of, I assume they probably get an idea. Yeah. For individuals, probably kind of like myself, are there any better, or word probably not is better, but is there any more optimal strategy in terms of a beginner looking to start their real estate portfolio? And we'll use me for example, or anybody who doesn't have a real estate portfolio. Like, what's the strategy?
You don't have to become a real estate broker to learn about real estate. And I learned that only a year into it, when I started dabbling and really buying books and watching YouTube videos about just real estate investing.
Purely just that.
Just that. And so like for somebody who's wanting to get into real estate or investing their money in real estate, you don't have to go take the course. It's very expensive, first of all. It's very time consuming. You could just really, whenever you have free time, learn about the investing side of it Okay. And whatever else after that, you could hire people to do that for you. You could hire a broker, you could hire someone to do the inspections. You don't have to start learning how to build a house from the ground up. Like that stuff you could delegate. But knowing how to spot a good deal, that is really the most important thing you could do as someone who's starting out, because your first deal has to be a good deal.
When you say spot a good deal, what are you looking for?
It's a good question. So, potential, well, it depends what your goal is. If your goal is to try to pull your money out in the first, 48 months max, you want to look for a property that has a lot of potential for optimization. Maybe you could add another
room,
another unit, like convert the garage into a bachelor. Now you just turned a triplex into a fourplex. That's optimization. Or buying something that needs some renos. So it depends what your goal is. If your goal is really to buy something and hold it for a long time, and you don't want to start getting into dealing with renovations and you know nothing about it, and you don't even know a single contractor that could give you a good price on labor, then maybe you want to start looking at pre-construction, like I did for the 26plex in Gatineau. I wasn't looking for a flip. But on that sort of deal, you're not pulling your money out for a minimum the first, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So it also depends what your goal is financially with the product, but you have to first ask yourself, what's my goal in the next 5 or 10 years financially? And then from there, start looking at what kind of property or project you want to invest in.
Get specific, more specific.
Exactly.
That's some good advice too, because I think that plays into any other sphere that you're dabbling your nose into, is the goal setting. Because having the goal setting, having more of that tunnel vision of that, the horizon, you're looking at where I'm going, I think structures you better to get more specific, sharpen some tools that you might be lacking or whatever it may be. So that's interesting.
Yeah, some people are just like, oh, I want to buy a condo. And like, I've literally asked clients and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why do you want to buy a condo? Are you going to go live in it? Oh, I just want to buy a condo to invest in real estate so I could say I own a property and rent it out at like a $600 a month negative loss, between condo fees and interest rates and taxes and whatever. So, another broker might just be like, okay, great. Let's go look for like condos, and we'll buy something that's within your range that you could afford. And that's it. You might not see it right away, but a few years down the line, do you really think that person's going to recommend you more business? Or would they value somebody who gave them good advice and didn't just go for the quick, easy transaction?
Long-term versus short-term thinking.
Right.
I like it. In terms of, because you mentioned the Grant Cardone, I think a couple times.
Right.
Are there any other, I guess, quote unquote, online real estate influencers that have a big presence online that you tend to have on your back pocket to kind of refer to or use as certain inspiration or use as some building blocks to aid you get even better into this? Because Grant Cardone is obviously there.
He's like mostly my number one.
Nice.
I've read a couple of other books that were good. Like the guy who started KW, Keller Williams.
I haven't.
How to Become a Millionaire Broker. It was a good book. I like that one a lot too. Ryan Serrant, old school Ryan Serrant. Now he's just constantly trying to sell his coaching.
Media.
And his his
influencer
subscriptions. Yeah. But before, I really found that I was learning from his content, and that's what people like.
Very good content.
Yeah. So I liked him a lot too. Prior, yeah.
So Grant Cardone, Ryan Serhant.
Yeah, Serhant, yeah.
I know, driving up here, you were listening a bit to Alex Hormozi, which is crazy because...
Yeah, he's my favorite.
Yeah, the two guys that I had here too, like, they were speaking of him. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
And have you heard of Ryan Pineda?
Sure.
Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say this.
I don't, like, I'm not.
His stuff is hit or miss. Like, there's some videos that he puts out there about how easy it is to flip a property, and, you know, you could put an entire down payment on a credit card, which has like 0% interest for the first 18 months. And I'm just like, dude,
Bad move.
yeah. So, but I get it. He's just trying to constantly create content, but some of his stuff is great, but it's like hit or miss on some of his stuff. I find it's like a little exaggerated, or he tries to oversimplify it, and then people don't realize when you actually get there, it's not that easy to, you know, flip a property if you have no idea what you're doing in construction. You know, it's and he's trying to sell his, you know,
I think that's
a property course.
Yeah, and I think that's the a bit of the issue, I guess I'll put it that way, is that a lot of them are transitioning or starting to include like they're selling their courses. And I think it kind of shifts a bit the value you're giving to people and the strategy to which they're creating content and stuff. I obviously want to speak of this.
Yeah.
Violin Chuck. The violinist Chuck.
Oh my God.
Come on.
Yeah.
Tell me how. Now, I know you just said, you know, your mom was a music and art teacher, so I imagine that's where the influence of starting to be a violinist came from. I could be mistaken, but how did that come about? Because now I don't know nothing. When I found out, I was like, you're either joking or I don't know.
Most people don't believe me when I tell them that I was like a competitive violin soloist
I'm guilty
at
of
the
that.
national level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
like top 3 in Canada.
Yeah.
So
tell me how that whole thing began.
Yep. So my mom, you know, she went back to work after we were, I think I was 5. She started going back to work, and she would always bring a different instrument to class each week to show the students. Do like a little presentation, teach them about the different instruments. It was really fun. I thought it was a cool idea. Well, now I do, not when I was 5. But so she would bring pretty much a new instrument home every like 1 or 2 weeks. And she would dabble with it just to be able to like enough so that she could just show the students the gist of it, how it works, how it sounds, you know,
what it looks
all that
like.
stuff. Exactly how it works and whatnot. So one day she brought home a violin, and it was very different from anything else I had seen. And that alone piqued my curiosity. So because I showed interest in the violin and wanted to like look at it and hold it and touch it, it was very cool. And like you had to hold it super delicate. It was like 100-year-old piece of wood. So for me, I was like, ooh, this is cool. And so because of that, when my mom, you know, she put us all into music at 5 or 6, when it came time to choosing which instrument to put us into, she was like, for his birthday, I'm getting him a violin. Wow. And that's literally how it started. Just because one day she brought that instrument home, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And that was it. Didn't know what I was getting myself into. Yeah. And it's funny because I always said I'd wish that I had the talent that I had in music for sports, because I had the passion and love for sports and not for music. It was just something that like I was born into. I just felt like it was something I never chose. I just did it. It almost felt like homework. Like no kid wants to practice 1 or 2 hours a day, obviously. But I did enjoy it. The only time I actually enjoyed it was when I would like perform or compete, because the lead up to that is not fun. Nobody loves it. And even less so when you're like a kid. You just want to go play outside and play with your toys. But yeah, that's how I got started. And very early on, like my teacher could see right away that I was different and that I was gifted. Like I just had a touch for it, you know? And so she would literally come to pick me up from my elementary school once a week during my lunch break just to give me extra free classes. Yeah. Nobody who does that, right? She was like a second mom to me, by the way. This lady, like Lucine Balikian, shout out to her.
Amazing.
She's one of the best. Yeah, I was just lucky that when my mom went to go sign me up at McGill Conservatory, like I ended up just getting that teacher. It's like a wheel. It's like, oh, that student goes there, that student. I got very, very lucky that I landed on her because she was one of those people that was really passionate about what she did, and she just cared about putting out the best students. She really pushed us. She came up in the Russian school of music. She was tough. She used to hit me with her bow if I wasn't listening. Could you imagine if somebody did that today? It wasn't hard. It was just like a little on the hand or something. Yeah. But I love that woman, you know.
Well, I'm loving her just listening to this.
Yeah, she was the best. She would be like, Chuck, you're not focused. You're hungry? I feed you. And then she'd like go and like bring out like a lasagna or something, and like whatever she was cooking for her family that night, she would just like feed me if I
need
wasn't
more of her.
Focusing. Yeah, she was great. So that was it. And then I just kept competing and competing at bigger and bigger and bigger shows each year, and until I got to the CMC, which is like the best you could get in Canada. It's a Canadian music competition.
Okay.
So you have to place first in Quebec to even be sent to the finals.
Which is solely because when you say music, people might think of like singing. So is this solely just instruments?
Yes. So you're a specific category. So every 2 years, it's a different group.
Branch. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So like, you know, for me, it was 9 and 10-year-olds. When I went, I did CMC twice actually. But they also included cellos, not violas or bass. So we were competing between violins and cellos. And so you had to place first in your province. First, it was a regional shows. So there's 3 shows. You have to place first in regionals, then first for all of Quebec. And then every year, the finals is in a different place in Canada.
I see.
Yeah, and I was lucky that year because it was being held in Quebec City. And after that, it was just like no looking back.
No looking back, eh?
Yeah, I kept going till I was like 16 or 17. Wow. Yeah, 17 was like the last big concert I ever gave.
How did that end?
Honestly, I had a really bad hockey injury to my wrist. I broke my scaphoid, and knowing what I know now, like they never do this anymore, but they kept recasting me for like 6 months. Yeah. You're never supposed to not have something moving. So there was like extreme atrophy, and like my wrist could barely bend back as far as my right one can. And so taking that much time off, I got used to not having to practice anymore. And I kind of liked it. I was getting lazy. And it was also at the point where I was getting scouted for prep school for hockey. And I switched into Genre Sport Études from Royal West. And so once I finally was able to go back to playing sports, I was just like, I don't feel like doing this anymore because I just know this is not going to be my career. I see. At that point, to continue with the violin at that level meant that like you were going to go into university for that, and then you're going to become a professional performer or play in the Montreal Symphony Orchestra.
Like it's that.
It's that, and now you're going from practicing 1 to 2 hours a day to like 4 or 5.
That's what I wanted to speak about to you, is the practice aspect, because it's a very, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Yeah. It's a very disciplinary type art.
Yeah, compared to ballet.
But like
or
gymnastics. An instrument, in this case it's violin.
Yeah.
It must take a whole lot of discipline, making sure you're performing and focused optimally, like, all the time. Having that athlete mindset or that championship mindset, that's what it requires, I'm assuming. How did just like building that craft, the practices, the hours, like what was that like? Like, did you have, like, just tell me a bit more about that, because I know that it takes a lot of time to perfect something, to perfect your craft, to build your craft, to no, Chuck, do 1 more hour. No, dedicate that 30 more minutes because you're going to get the note. Or how does that?
Well, it was sort of like this, because I was competitive and because I've always been competitive, whether it was for music or sport, I didn't want to embarrass myself. So the fear of going up on stage and not sounding ready or completely messing up, because there, like any little dribble, like you might not even notice I made a mistake, but the panel of 5 judges, It's like in figure skating, they're watching you like a hawk. So you might think somebody did a perfect performance and they got like an 88 from the judges in a concerto competition, you know, and you're like,
what? Say that again?
Like a concerto competition.
Which is?
You're performing a concerto. So like you'll be up on stage, no music, by the way, and you might have to perform like 2 or 3 or 4 movements back to back. Like you could potentially be up there for like 35 minutes straight.
Wow.
No music, no sheets in front of you, and you have to know it all off by heart.
So in a way, it's freestyle.
No, not freestyle. You need to. It's the
know your routine.
Of freestyle.
Okay, I get it.
You got to get every fingering, every bow like perfect.
And when you say no music, there's no sound on the exterior of the violin. It's purely just you, the violin, no sheets, nothing in front of you. Your brain, your wrists.
There's no.
It's just
no
so people
paper
can
in front of
understand.
you. You can't see the music, so you got to memorize the entire song, all the different fingerings, all the bows. Everything. So if you're playing a concerto and you got a performance and you got to perform this concerto and it's half an hour long, you don't get to be up there next sheet reading the music on a stand. There's no stand. There's no music. When you're performing, when you're competing, you're never allowed to have your sheet music up there.
Wow.
Yeah. So everything's always by 100%. Like it has to be memorized off by heart. Yeah.
For that duration.
Yeah. And even if you're not performing concerto, sometimes, you know, you'd have a sonata that you're playing, another piece, and then one movement of concerto. All 3 of those combined, you're up on stage for like 20 minutes, 25 minutes performing, and it's all completely 100% off by heart.
And this is at what age that people are in this situation where like they're playing how do you say the crescendo?
Concerto. A concerto is just like a piece made up of almost like, think of like a book of chapters.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get it.
It's almost like telling a story, but with music. There's like a beginning, a middle, an end.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so interesting because I imagine a lot of, like now I just learned about that. That's so interesting that you're able just with a sound or that vibration for someone listening that probably knows a bit more. Like you just recently went to see you had an acronym for it.
The OSGM, the Montreal Symphony Orchestra.
Yeah, so you just went to see that. Like, so I imagine you having that background, you're able to feel. We spoke about it briefly, but you just get a certain vibration, a certain feel. You see it differently or hear it differently than a lot of people.
Hearing a symphony orchestra live, like 20 feet away from you, like 50 musicians on stage. Full orchestra, there's no experience it's like it musically. And I love rock and roll. I've been to rock concerts. I've been to rap shows. Not the biggest fan.
Like EDM.
R&B. Been to EDM. I used to love that stuff. But seeing a fully stocked symphony orchestra playing one of these concertos live, there's just, it hits you in the feels for sure.
I told you a bit every morning. Every day, actually, like even in the sauna or when I do my breath work, my meditation, I love that type of like music.
Classical music, yeah.
I love it.
Or Baroque or Romantic era, whatever.
The jazz, the violin.
I love jazz.
I love it.
Even blues.
The blues. Oh my God.
I like blues.
There's just something so different about just purely the instruments, such as like the piano, the violin, the cello, certain sounds. There's something about like hearing it when it pierces your eardrum and like your skin. There's just something about hearing those sounds and how it makes you feel, how the vibration, those waves get to you. There's something, I love it so much, and it puts me in a certain like...
Well, music is language, right? You could read music. So technically I learned another language because I had to be able to read music. So just like with writing, you could read something and it has zero emotional effect on you. Like you read Caillou versus Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. It's like, it hits you.
Yeah.
So it's the same with music. Not all music is created equal.
Right.
So, you know, listening to a concerto by Mozart or Beethoven, personally for me, is the equivalent of like reading something from a big poet versus listening to Cardi B.
I see.
like there's nothing there.
Yeah.
It's just
it's empty. Yeah. It's more empty.
Yeah. It's like, how could you compare the two? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So since you stopped at like 17, have you revisited, do you still revisit that type of music in terms of listening to it either on a daily basis or weekly basis, or are you not able? I'm going to give you an example.
Yeah.
The example I'm giving is because for me, when I stopped playing hockey, I didn't want to hear about it, watch it, or play it. I couldn't enter an arena. I couldn't go back there because I would have gotten either such a huge itch, and also it's because I kind of said I closed that door.
I did that with hockey too, by the way. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Is that similar in terms of the music? Are you able to listen to music for it to not have like a negative, or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do get the itch, especially after seeing the Montreal Symphony Orchestra live a few days ago. Like the first thing I did was I went home and I was like, I haven't picked up my violin in like almost 3 months. And I was just like, I need to practice. I went home and I started playing the violin. And then the morning after, I woke up at 6:30 just to be able to practice an hour, because I knew if I didn't do that the rest of my day, like I wouldn't be able to. Yeah. So like listening to it too, but I just find it helps you get into a meditative state.
That's why. That's exactly why I listen to it.
I can't meditate. I know it's something you could work on and practice and whatnot, but for me, playing music is like meditation, because when you're playing, you're so focused on that singular task at hand. It requires 100% of your focus that you literally go instantaneously into like a flow state.
Yeah.
And that is, in a sense, meditation. Like you're not really thinking about anything else, right? You can't be distracted and play an instrument. It won't work. It really requires like 100% of your brain work. And so that's the one thing I really miss about it, is like every time I would finish practicing, it almost felt like I had like a brain pump. You know, so and I would always feel like a lot more like relaxed, as if I just like walked out of like a yoga class. Yoga too, you're focusing on your breathing, you're focusing on and holding this position or that position. Your focus has to be 100% there, or you just fall over. Yeah. Wow. So, yeah.
I gotta go to the bathroom.
Cool.
I'm gonna take a little break, and then we'll come in back and wrap up.
Sick.
Good. Okay, so we're back, everyone. So I have a question that I started asking and implementing in these episodes that I'm going to obviously ask you now. Living or dead, if you were given 3 VIP tickets that you had in your possession right now that you could give to these 3 people for a dinner, who would those 3 people be?
Oh. Living or dead. Wow, I never thought of that. I'd probably want to have dinner with Einstein. I think that'd be be really cool. Pick someone's brain like that. Nelson Mandela, probably another one. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Before you say a third one, just because some people sometimes don't take this into consideration, I'm talking anybody. Family, athlete, music artist, obviously the type of people you just put on that list. Yeah.
And well, my third one was, before you even said that, was actually going to be my grandmother.
Wow.
Yeah, my mom's mom, who passed away when I was 9 years old. I wish I would have been able to speak to her, get to know her as an adult. She was like, she was a second mom to me, because she used to live 6 months a year in Spain, 6 months a year in Montreal. So growing up, it was like, she was like a mom to me. And my parents, we were middle class. They both worked a lot. And so I spent a lot of time with her, but I never got to know her as an adult. And she was like my favorite person in the entire family on both sides.
Wow.
And unfortunately, she left us pretty young. So if I could also for the simple reason of having her cooking again.
It was good.
Have dinner. It was
wow.
by like 3 miles. She was the best cook in the family. Yeah, yeah. By on both sides by like miles. Wow. So yeah, that'd probably be my third. Yeah.
Albert Einstein, Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
Your grandmother.
Yeah.
On your mom's side, your mom's mom, your grandmother, and you. 4 people at the dinner table, and they all said yes to come.
Oh, we're all at the same table now.
Absolutely.
Whoa.
100%.
Interesting.
You're all at the same table.
Cool.
That's what's interesting. I asked that question because it just sometimes gives me a different perspective on what your response would be versus what this person's response would be versus this person and myself. So it's always interesting to see what type of people certain people pick, because it just establishes a certain understanding of where you're at mentally right now. And maybe in a week or in a month's time, you would not have the same response just because you're in a different state, different thoughts, different goals, whatever. So it's always interesting for me ever since I started asking that question to see what people would actually reply and respond to. If you were to say, and I've said this in my other episodes, like 3 athletes, I kind of get where you're at and who this person is and where they're coming from. So with those 3, I'm like, that's interesting. And it's also interesting to see the team you're building. That the name of the podcast is TeamMADE. So the TeamMADE Podcast. So it's always interesting to see what that team would look like. In other words, who's at that dinner table, and just envisioning and establishing this, this drawing, so to speak, of what that dinner would be like. Those 4 people, including you, what the chemistry would be like, what type of conversations, maybe have your grandmother cook
for everybody. Good meal. That would be the goal for sure.
Wouldn't that be crazy?
That'd be the goal.
So it's always interesting to see.
Yeah.
Chuck, bro, thanks for coming. Again, thanks for doing this. We had a good conversation. Yeah. Before we say goodbye to everyone, before we sign off, where do people find you? Social media handles, anything you want to promote out there?
So for my coaching business, it's Frischman Fitness. And for real estate, it's Frischman Realty.
Perfect.
All one word.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's where they could find you?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Any website?
They're both my name. .com.
Perfect. So if you're listening to this audio version, Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening to this, all of Chuck's links are going to be in the show notes, in the captions of the video, also on YouTube. So you could go check him out, see what he's doing. Maybe even if you're a beginner or looking to build your real estate portfolio, I got a good real estate broker here in front of me. So we'll slip that in there. But honestly, thank you so much for coming, for doing this, taking the time out of your day to do it also. I had to have you on again. And I know this was a good one. Thank you for the gift too. And thanks. It's cool. It's cool to have you as a friend. Thank you.
And this has been really fun. Really cool experience. It's always a pleasure seeing you. So thank you. I appreciate it, brother.
Awesome.